Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this week's WARNO dev blog / news post / bit of both. So we've got information on new maps, improvements and balancing, aka a preview of the next update, and then we've got some information on one of these SOUTHAG operations. So let's start just by going through the news. So there are two new maps coming, which we've discussed before in dev blogs. So that's Omen and Surrounded, which I won't go into again. You can look back over those dev blogs. Then they mention important changes. So first up, they want to mention the freeze / black screen issues with the driver crashes and stuff. Our teams are still working to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience and understanding while we work on a solution. They're obviously really struggling with this. I know that obviously they've been getting feedback from Strike Team from time to time. It's not just an issue with new drivers. So I have a driver from when Stalker 2 was released, so long before the 50 series came out, and obviously I've had this issue as well, as have other people on older drivers. So there's something else going on there, but you know, whether it's Nvidia specifically, the game certainly is playing a role in my opinion, and there could even be a Windows update that's being forced through that's causing issues for all I know. But certainly the issue is still there. Hopefully they find a solution soon, because it's obviously very frustrating for everybody. They've made several improvements to the armory, including the unit display with veterancy levels, improved filters, and an updated visual design. And then units that have suffered a critical hit will now be usable again after repairs. So that will resolve an issue that has been ongoing as well. So, balance changes. As we previously announced, this update will also introduce some reworks and take the first steps towards balancing things. So, the rework of the reservist trait and the introduction of the new militia trait, again we've discussed this in a previous dev blog, you can go back and have a look at that. And then IFVs, they're making initial adjustments to autocannons and ATGM variants. The autocannons reduced effective range, decreased accuracy, and a slightly lowered area of effect and suppression capability. So obviously there's been a meta of just throwing IFVs in mass quantities at people. That will now be curtailed a little bit. ATGMs, incidentally, on those IFVs will also have an increased reload time between shots. Anti-air guns, they're introducing a minimum range for all the anti-aircraft guns. That's to stop them just annihilating infantry they come across. So it's to give the infantry a bit of a fighting chance. It should be noted that obviously they haven't mentioned the artillery rework here. As I mentioned in last week's video, the artillery rework is in the distant future. It is not coming anytime soon. They just announced that they're working on it. Could be a bit early for that, but I guess they wanted some discussion around it. But the artillery rework is not going to be in this patch. It's coming in the distant future. So just to reiterate that I mentioned previously. And that's the first steps of the various changes that they're going to be working on in the future. And they're hoping to get feedback on these changes that they're making when this releases. Okay, let's move on to the SOUTHAG operation. So, SOUTHAG operation number 2, Glory or Attrition. So we have finished with our divisional previews for SOUTHAG, and we return once again to the operations and the Army General campaigns that will be featured in the upcoming expansion. Today we're looking at Glory or Attrition. So, these are the battlefields in southern West Germany and Czechoslovakia. As the start of World War III in Europe, combat on this part of the frontier mostly consists of small-scale local battles, keeping a struggling NATO off balance, but lacking any kind of vigour or determination on the part of the Warsaw Pact to make a lasting impact. This proves to be the Communists' undoing, as the Soviet Central Group Forces and the Czechoslovak People's Army find themselves facing a rapidly reorganizing and reforming SOUTHAG Command, with its reinforcing West German, American, Canadian, French and Spanish troops. While the battles in the north and SENTAG's area of command are putting NATO on the back foot, an overextended flanking attack by the Central Group Forces is squashed by the combined West German and American task force near Nuremberg. Or Nuremberg? Nuremberg. Anyhow, follow-up attacks by NATO's intended to fix a wavering Warsaw Pact in place. while a more audacious strategic counterattack is planned to strike through the Czechoslovakian flank and take the fight to the enemy territory. In order to do so, as many of the CSLA-1's armada needs to be engaged as much as possible, some of them already beating a retreat. This is a task that falls on the Canadian shoulders. So they have a little video which is available, and I will probably stick it in the background. That's like an intro to it, but let's keep talking in the meantime. So the Communist forces are reeling on the southern front. The 1st Canadian Division receives the orders to continue the attack. They are to stop the retreat of the Czechoslovakian 19th Motorized Rifle Division. However, the arrival of the reinforcing elements of the 1st Tank Division throws a wrench into the planning. With more and more armour standing in the way, success in this NATO attacking operation follows 2 strands of thought: battlefield domination or the total destruction of the enemy. Highly mobile, the 1st Canadian Division brings Grizzly APC, supported by Swift Cougar Fire support vehicles, medium Leopard C1 tanks, the M113 ADATs, which is able to engage heavy ground units as much as air targets with its unique missile system. And last but not least, an aerial support from the CF-118, the Canadian designation of the FA-18 Hornet. Glory or Attrition, you'll be presented with several tactical choices. The first one could be seizing the high ground, with 3 elevated plateaus giving you positional superiority. Alternatively, you can dive deep into the attack and bludgeon the Warsaw Pact into submission before they establish a new defensive foothold. As the Communists are running in the mission and pouring in reinforcements, Glory or Attrition is going to be a showcase of a commander's tactical ingenuity. Either destroy all the units or gain control over a sufficient number of command sectors and win by points. This sounds easier said than done. In the end, the Czechoslovaks will fight for survival with plenty of combined mechanized army units rolling up to the Canadian positions. Let us know what you think of Glory and Attrition. So, WARNO SOUTHAG expansion in short, a little bit of a repeat there, we won't go into it, and then they just say until next week. But thank you for joining me, everyone. As I say, a bit shorter this week. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll see you all soon.